Hi, my name's Friedrich. I don't really have like a snappy channel name or anything. Might get one eventually, but until then you can just call me Fred. So today I'm going to be doing the Booktube Newbie tag. It's my very first video, so I'm very fresh newbie. So let's get started. Number one is, why did I start this channel? Why does anybody start a booktube channel? You know, they have like opinions and they think everyone needs to know them. You probably don't need me here. There are plenty of other people who know a lot more about books than I do. They aren't bogged down also worrying about video games, and actually books and video games are like the only thing I ever think about. Question number two is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to booktube? And that's what I was thinking, is that I was going to do something a bit different. I know a lot of booktube channels like to, you know, pick up the brand new releases, and they're talking about all the new hyped stuff. A lot of booktube videos are based on like a specific book, and they'll do that sort of typical spoiler, non-spoiler, and like what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, and like I'm going to be doing stuff about that, about like individual books, but I don't think that'll be like the main channel where it'll be like I read a book, then I make a video on it, and I won't be like doing that thing where it's like, here's what I read in May, because what I read in May will be like one book I wanted to read and like 17 really dry linguistic journal articles, because I'm in my third year of university and it eats me. So I was thinking I was going to do some stuff where I'd look at like series analysis maybe, because I'm currently reading Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings for the first time, and I'm losing my mind over how amazing it is. I'm also a big fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, and it'd be cool to do some theory analysis for that based solely on the bookverse, because there are like a million Game of Thrones theory videos out there, but a lot of them take into account the TV series universe, which has only drifted farther from the book series as time goes on, because Big George won't get off his ass and write a new one. I was going to take a look at some like specific genre things. We could do like a look at tropes, you know, stuff like that. Less focused on like a specific book and more like a holistic view of how different books influence each other, things that are prevalent across multiple books, stuff like that. What I'm most excited for about this new channel? I gotta be honest, I haven't really expressed my book views since I was in like a high school book club all those years ago. So it'd be cool to have like a place to put all my opinions, because that's what the internet needs. More opinions. Number four is, why do I like reading? You know, people are always like, oh, I like the escapism, you know, it takes me away from my shitty life, and yeah. But also, that's true for like most storytelling. It's a reason why people like TV, why they like movies, why they like video games, why they like comic books, blah 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 blah. What I like specifically about what literature can do in that regard is the interactivity of it. I have trouble focusing on things for a long period of time. If I'm not in a cinema watching a movie, if I'm just like sitting in bed or like in my living room or something, I will inevitably just wander off. I can't even get through like a single 21-minute episode of an anime without, I don't know, alt-tabbing, wandering off, doing something else. So the thing with books is that to get the story, you got to put effort in. You have to be continually reading. You can't just stop and let it happen to you. You have to be putting in your time and effort in order to get the reward of what the book is actually saying to you, which is why some people have like a lot of trouble reading, why they can't find like as much enjoyment in it, because it requires a lot out of you. You know, we read like every single moment of our lives, you know, we're used to it, but it is still like an activity that you have to do. But that helps me keep focused, you know. That's why I also like video games so much, is that you have to like do things to get things. So there's like that motivation to just stick at it, because the more you do, the more you get. Instead of just like the more you sit there, the more you get. It's like, Nah. Something else that I really like about books in particular is the versatility of a language. I don't know, that's what the hell are you talking about? But you know, you look at like how different people can interpret different words. That's something I've really enjoyed looking at in linguistics, my degree. And I study language, I'm so smart. Knowing that you can read the same sentence in the same paragraph and get like something different out of it than someone else would reading the exact same thing is really cool to me. We all have like our own history with words. Like you look at a specific word, it brings to mind certain connotations, and no one's like meaning that they assign to a word is identical to someone else's. Like obviously they're incredibly similar, and oftentimes you won't like be able to like tell that there's a difference, which is why talking can happen. But you still get a different interpretation based on your experience with that word and how you've used it personally, how you've seen other people use it, and like what you think its specific applications are, what its specific connotations are, and that sort of stuff. So what I really like about books is the social aspect of it. When you talk about it with someone, you will get something different out of the book that they have gotten out, and oftentimes they'll be like agreeing interpretations. They're just slightly different, like parallel lines. They're different lines, but they go in the same place. But they're different. What book or series got you into reading? I am of the age where it was Harry Potter, ride or die, and I rode. That metaphor doesn't make any sense. It was Harry Potter. I was born in 1997, as was the Harry Potter series. It was basically one of the first chapter books I read, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and I have very vivid memories of being a wee thing and going to like the midnight launches of those books. I remember walking around and just carrying a goblet of fire with me. I was like a little kid with this enormous book, and I was just like, I'd take it everywhere. That's something that has definitely remained the same. I fucking love high fantasy, so I'm walking around like with this thing in my bag. Just everywhere I go, it's like, I don't have room for my textbooks, what's going on? Well, I can't take this out. This book I'm reading for no reason other than it's huge and it's got a dragon on the cover. It's important. Question number 6. I think I've only held up fingers for this like twice. Oops. Question number 6 is, what question would you ask your favorite booktuber? And that is a weird one because I do not like talking to people. I haven't like sat down and said to myself, so if I got them in a room, I would like ask them this, and this. I was like, what? No. It's like, if they have something to say, they'll make a video about it. That's what Booktube is. I don't even know if I have like a favorite booktuber. I have several that I like, but I feel embarrassed. like you. I've watched all your stuff. I really like it. So I feel weird doing that. You don't know me. You have no idea I'm here, so it's like, hey, can you imagine how weird that would be? You're just scrolling through like Booktube tags and you're like, oh, a newbie video, nice, let's have a look and see what this person's bringing to YouTube, and then suddenly they like say your full name into the camera. Yeah, so I don't know if I have like what's your favorite book? I don't know, if someone has something that I find interesting, I'll comment on the video. And if they reply to mine and I have questions about what they're saying, then I'll just reply to them. Like, this seems like a weird way to start a conversation. Sorry. Question number 7 is, what challenges do you think starting a Booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? And that's an easy one because I can never stick with anything. So I'm not even going to try and pretend to have an upload schedule. I have like one idea for a video I want to do, and after that, who knows, maybe this will be my only video. Maybe I won't even make the video out of this. It'll just be me sitting on my bed talking to my phone for several minutes, and then no one will ever see it. I don't have plans to have like an upload schedule. I don't have like plans for any series. I'm not going to do like regular TBRs or wrap-ups or anything like that. I honestly don't want to be like a professional YouTuber or anything. I don't care if this makes me any money. I don't care if this gets any attention. If you like what I say, I really appreciate that, and I'd be glad to hear it, but I'm not like asking for you to pay much attention to me if you're just like, And this is like whatever. I don't feel like I need to spend all this time watching it. It's like, you don't have to. Bye. Have a good day. I gotta be honest, this isn't something I'm gonna put like all of my time and effort into. Like I went to the effort of putting on this coat, and that's about as much as you could expect. I'm literally wearing pajama pants like on the bottom half of this outfit. So this isn't gonna be like one of those professional channels. I'm not gonna hit like 20,000 subscribers or anything. I just have some stuff to say sometimes, so don't go expecting videos every week or whatever. I don't know why you would expect that from a newbie video, but now that we've had like 2 booktuber questions like in the middle of like regular reading questions, we'll go back to the reading questions. So number 8, is this 8? No, that's 7. Why did I put this thumb in? Number 8 is, when did you start to read? And I honestly didn't realize that this was like a question people had until I started watching other Booktube Newbie tags, because I was like, I started to read when I learnt to read, like when I was like 4. Duh. And when people are like, no, I only got into reading when I was in like grade 7 and I started to get into middle grade books, and I was like, oh right, yeah. Little kid books can be really boring and no one wants to read them. Not to be like super pretentious or anything, but I did learn to read quite young, and I learned to read a lot quite young. So I was reading Harry Potter, Philosopher's Stone, age 5. That's not me being like, I could read Harry Potter age 5, I'm amazing. It's just like, I started as soon as I learned to read. As soon as I learned how to read, I learned to love to read. Wow. Deep. But basically since then, I've just been hooked on fantasy shit. As a little kid, I really liked stuff like Lily Quench was really cool. Del Toro Quest, that was amazing. And same with like all of Emily Rodda's books, like Rowan of Rin and stuff. She's like the queen of middle grade fantasy, back before people like were calling it middle grade fantasy and hyping shit up, back when we were all in middle grade. Dope. Like, go back and read it now if you haven't read it, and if you have read it, go back and read it now, because Rowan of Rin is fantastic. The world building is legit. I might do a video on that. Question number 9 is, where do you read? And that's a good question because I alluded to it earlier and it makes me look like I prepared for this video. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just constantly lugging around in almost like 800-page fantasy tomes. That's because I read everywhere. I have like an hour-long commute to university every day. In case you didn't realize, I'm Australian. You can tell from the way my mouth moves and the sound comes out. And here it's pretty much the norm to live off campus and like catch a train or a bus or drive or just commute to school. So yeah, I'm still living at home. And I catch a train and a bus every day to school. And on that train and bus, I listen to podcasts and I read my book. And I get to school, get to class, and I read my book in class. Sometimes I do pay attention to class, don't worry. I'm not dropping out yet. But what am I talking about? The point is, I read everywhere. I always have a giant backpack on me, and inside that giant backpack is my laptop so I can write, but also some huge fucking book. Sometimes it's like up to 3 books. I don't know why I think I have that much time, but sometimes I just carry 3 books around with me and just read them. Question number 10 is, what books do you like to read? And that has something I have alluded to even more, and that is huge fantasy tomes. So I mentioned Realm of the Elderlings is probably my all-time favorite series, and I'm not even done with it yet. I'm just losing my mind over how amazing it is. I probably should have mentioned up front, but I am bigender, which is a non-binary gender. I go by he and she, and you can like mix that up. I don't really mind. Just don't use just one. It feels kind of weird. So reading Realm of the Elderlings, in which the deuterotagonist is gender fluid, is amazing. It's treated as something that is outside the dominant culture of the books, but it's not something inherently crazy. It's just how beloved is. And beloved he is, because I love that stupid jester so much. I would die for him. This is weird. I'm also a huge fan of Patrick Rothfuss's Kingkiller Chronicle, and it would be great if he would finish it. Please. Speaking of unfinished giant books written by large men with beards. No, wait, that's every fantasy series ever. So, Song of Ice and Fire. That's what I was getting at. I know YA and is YA like urban fantasy stuff is like thebomb.com here over on Booktube. But honestly, I don't know if I like outgrew YA or something, or if it just refused to innovate ever. But I'm honestly not really that into YA anymore. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to read that book because it's YA. It's just it most of them don't really appeal anymore. I think Six of Crows is YA, but that's like sitting next to me right now. I'm going to read it ASAP, which is like, I don't know what the hell ASAP is going to mean for me. It's probably like 5 years from now. But yeah, I don't have like a specific problem with YA. It's just no longer my favorite because it's always coming back to really boring love triangles, and it's always just some... The thing about YA is that they're all the same. That's mean. And the thing about YA is that like 90% of them are the same. And you have this main character who is just like Selena Sardothian wearing like 5 different hats. It's like you pick up a book and it's like, oh, this is Selena Sardothian but she's ginger. Oh, this one's Selena Sardothian but she's like short. Oh, this one's Selena Sardothian except she's like a painter. And it just doesn't really grab me anymore. Like, I think probably my favorite YA series would be The Hunger Games. And The Hunger Games was like gritty, like if you go gritty. Looking back on the books, which is kind of hard to do after everyone like went ham for the movies, but just the books in themselves, there is very like thick misery pervading those books, which is very fitting for what everyone's going through. And frankly, it's like one of the best parts of the book series is how difficult it is to read because of just how horrible shit is. But I think that's the only way it could have been, considering the topic is a nation collapsing, a nation that deserves to collapse, collapsing and taking out millions of civilians as it does so, which is the big shit. And I feel like a lot of other YA books that have come after The Hunger Games have looked at The Hunger Games and was like, okay, why is this successful? And instead of being like, it's a very serious look at the impacts of like war and trauma on young people, and instead being like, love triangle, big arena fight, little sister. And it's just like, okay. Now everyone's got archery again. And this is fine words coming from me, who became a sports archer because of how big of a nerd I am and spent a lot of money on some very expensive equipment that I no longer use because I'm lazy. And when faced with giving up some of my hobbies in order to do well in university, I was like, well, I'm not giving up books, writing, or video games, so it's going to be the one that makes me healthy. I'm not like completely stuck on fantasy though. Like, I will read other stuff. I quite like mystery stuff. I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, but frankly I reckon everyone should be. So I will take like recommendations on pretty much any genre, really. But I'm very much a character-driven person, which is why I like A Song of Ice and Fire so much, is because there are 15 bajillion characters and they all like interface really well. I want to make like a video on A Song of Ice and Fire, but my opinion boils down to the world building is boring as shit, but all the characters are just so alive that I feel like the characters are more of the world than the setting is, because the setting is just like, that's Europe. Europe. The one genre I do have a lot of trouble getting into is contemporary. Like I said before, YA needs to put in a lot of effort to grab me, and YA contemporary doubly so. Makes me a little depressed rereading YA contemporary stuff where it's like, Well, there's the youth I didn't have. And a lot of it is like super American too, so it's a little hard to get into, hard to like connect with, because of just how American these experiences are. And they're usually either American or British, and it's just like, well, I'll be down here in the middle of the ocean drowning. Adult contemporary too is boring. There's a lot of older men just putting their dick in things, and it's like, well, you have fun with that. I'll be over here looking at some vampires. Recently I've gotten more into short form stuff, short stories, literary magazines, such highbrow stuff as Heroic Fantasy Quarterly. I think short stories in a fantasy genre done well can be bite-sized snapshots of a really cool world. The thing about short fiction is when you like set up a magic system or something, it needs to make sense for what you set out to do in the story. Like you need to have this much perfect. So it's easier to get this much perfect and then have like a wider web that like sort of makes sense and you can like sort of draw on, but you don't have to like look intensely at. But when you get to like full series of novels I was going to say in Final Fantasy. When you get to full series of fantasy novels, there does need to be like a bigger system of magic, a bigger world out there that like works together cohesively. An exceptional example of this is the Kingkiller Chronicle, which kind of goes overboard in like inventing a new science, which is pretty cool, hard to follow and impossible to imitate. So it's easier sometimes to just read short form where it's like, look at this elf. That is the end of the tag, but I probably could talk about stuff forever, which is why I decided to make a booktube channel. Some more information about me, if you're curious. I'm a writer, in case you couldn't tell from how annoying I am. And I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you at all to learn that I write fantasy stuff. I haven't been published yet, but that won't surprise you either. And like I mentioned, I was getting into the short form stuff because I'm looking to sell short form stuff first as like a resume builder. But also because, like I said, it's fun to dip a toe into a fantasy world for a short story. And also, if you make up a fantasy world, you can just grab bits of it for a short story, and then they look like new ideas, but it's just different bits of the same map. But they don't make sense as a story, because I can't be asked to think of like a second full epic saga. Because of course I am, I'm writing a long-ass fantasy series. You know, because that's what people do, you know. I remember listening to Christopher Paolini talk, and he was like, oh, when I was 15 I graduated from homeschool, so I built a big hole and I sat in it and then I wrote all of Aragon. I was like, you know what, that makes perfect sense. That's what Aragon reads like, that you sat in a big hole. And he put like a satellite dish on top of it. I don't know, I just have like the first like author talk that I went to where I like really liked what the author had written, and you could tell I was 15 at this point because I really, really liked Aragon, was Christopher Paolini's talk. And I was at a convention with one of my friends, and I had taken a photo of me like hugging a Dalek because I was 15, and we was in this big like warehouse watching Christopher Paolini sit on this tiny stool as he talked about putting a satellite dish on a big hole that he had filled with leaves in, and then he sat in it and he wrote Aragon. It just feels relatable at the moment. So I don't have an outro, obviously, because this is just something I decided to do one day, but I have links in the description. I feel weird doing this. I feel like I'm like pointing to my dick or something. I don't know. To like, that was cross. I have links down there to my Twitter and my Tumblr. I don't know. Follow me on Twitter. I'll reblog a meme about the Fool. Yay, Robin Hobb. I don't know. Don't expect anything from me.